And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine, what is it, Wednesday? It's Wednesday evening by Harrison Fagan of SB Nation. I hope I said it before. I'm Anthony Irwin of Lakers Daily, just to make sure I clarify that. Speaking of Lakers Daily, people have been asking about the article that I've been teasing here on the show. I promise once that article goes live, and the plan is for it to go live here in the next 24 to 48 hours, depending on when a certain bit of news drops. When that article goes live afterward, as part of the live reaction show to that bit of news, I will explain why it's taken so long for that article to drop. So just a heads up on what happened there. But just know, whenever it does go live, I wrote that thing last Thursday. So it will be like a week old by the time it drops or whatever. But I think it will still have very pertinent information. But all that aside, Harrison, how you holding up, buddy?
I'm doing good. It's nice to not be like fully on sort of coach firing watch and sort of my new position. I'm like I'm observing, I'm monitoring from afar. But it's like I'm not sitting there. I'm like, okay, wait, is the pre-write ready to go? It's like it's kind of nice. It's not like I've been through a number of these, as a chief Lakers blogger type guy, and it's nice to not be like, okay, like do I have like how quickly can I access the Byron Scott fired pre-write link? On my phone. Like, can I do it if I'm out on this trail walk with my wife? It's like, no, if it happens out there, then I'll just, I'll call in and I'll chat with Anthony, in an hour. But yeah, I'm doing great. This is sort of, as I think most people know, this is about the outcome of that series that I expected. And so, off to Cancun. I should have had a Cancun backdrop. I apologize for that.
I think we can have one. Yeah, I think if you look at settings on your stream.
Oh no, I definitely could. I just did not. So
let me see. Can I have it? Where's my
major prop comedy oversight on my part?
It's not there. It's no longer there. That's too bad.
Yeah. All right. I feel bad for the people that you're too much of a coward to stand on business and release this article. Like you're waiting for the funeral to like show up and give the speech. You could get out ahead of this.
I don't know. Like, I also don't want to report that wrong, because here's the thing. Here's the how I've spent my day is like you and I talked this morning about when we should go live, and I said I basically cleared my day, waiting for this news to drop, and and like by the way, it's not that I'm like dancing on the guy's funeral that much. It's more like
Anthony, he's going to be getting paid like $8 million to like not work for 2 years. So I do. It's like, yeah, does it suck to get fired? I'm sure, but he's going to be fine. It's
yeah. We've also all been fired. Like it's the other thing, like almost everybody at some point in your life is going to get fired, and so like this just happens to be his turn.
It's just you get wisdom and lessons, and this will be a lesson. And
but anyway, so we talked this morning. We messaged back and forth this morning about like our plan for today, and I said I basically cleared out the day waiting for this to go live so that you and I can go live. Is that okay with you? And you said I only have this one thing, and we went back and forth, and that was, and eventually, like with the news not dropping, we just said, okay, well, I got to wait for the kids to go down, and now here we are. But over the course of the day, because of the way that my brain works, remember the analogy I made back when they had Russell Westbrook still on the team? And like at the beginning of the offseason,
procedured that entire season for my brain. So no, I do not remember.
But like we like remember that whole summer it began with like, okay, well, finally they're gonna this has to be line one, priority one of their offseason is finally moving off of this guy. It was a disaster of a first season. He can't possibly enter next season on the roster again. And then like over the course of the summer, it was like, oh my God. And the analogy or the comparison that I used was, watching two cars back up into each other in a parking lot. you know, like, like, oh, come on, they're not going to hit.
You could have just said watching Mia drive.
See, now I remember that. You spent that
now I
entire
do
offseason shitting on your wife's driving.
Yeah.
But I basically said, like, you know, I said, this is funny. The Lakers had Russell Westbrook. Jarvis goes, I don't remember. But yeah, I basically, you know, spent that whole offseason. We all spent that whole offseason saying, like, all right, this guy can't possibly be a Laker anymore. Like, it didn't work. It's not going to work. There's no way to make a $47 million Russell Westbrook work in any.
Anthony,
like,
I had a whole bit that whole offseason making fun of how dumb the idea to bring everyone back was.
You're right. You're right.
Because it was like every week, it's like, oh, the Lakers don't feel any pressure to move off of Russ. Why would they? Things can't go worse than they did last year.
The season of run it back. I remember that now. So like, but basically over the course of today, that's the same spot that I've been in. It's like, I'm watching those two same cars. You know, they're both sitting right there in that same Costco parking lot. Couple Toyota Siennas. They can't quite see that one spot right behind them, and they're now backing up. They have began their slow path towards each other, and I'm just looking at these two minivans that you know, you're like, no, they can't possibly do this. They aren't actually going to do this. And from what I've heard, by the way, and for what it's worth, I'm still told that in all likelihood, Darvin Ham is going to be fired. And like, it's just
what? Sorry, it took me a second to process that. Wow.
I kind of picture like Darvin sitting there like, what are you guys waiting for? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, meanwhile, Jeannie's like, what if we do the staring contest thing? Maybe he'll resign.
Yeah. So okay. You know? So can you clear out for a second and let me cook on this?
I will.
Because like I think we've sort of prefaced it enough and talked about, like, we all know this is coming. You have the headline thing up there. Do the Lakers think they're fooling anyone? For anyone watching on YouTube, by the way, subscribe to Lakers Lounge. How's that plug?
Got a kid.
You know, everyone knows what is going to happen here. I think the Russ analogy is a great one, because if this goes on much longer, it's going to be just as silly as that was. You know, to be honest, like, I think you actually had a very funny theory today that they were waiting until the games tonight so that less people would be able to write about it. Like, you know, the national people were focused on the playoff games or whatever, and they just like drop it during Clippers match. Like, fourth quarter, Luka hits a giant shot and Woj is just like, yeah, Darvin Ham's been dismissed.
Rob's like, quick, Woj, go now, go.
Which, like, my guess is that's not how they'll actually do it, because I think Jeannie is sort of such a good league citizen in terms of, like, they hung the IST banner because the league wanted them to, and they wanted to be a good corporate partner or whatever. And so generally the league frowns upon like leaking stuff in the middle of games. And so my guess is that they will wait for like a non-game day or whatever, or something like that. Or, you know, do it earlier in the day or whatever. But I think the real reason for all of this, and I sort of got into this with you, you know, like, I mean, number one, the jokes of like, even Ham is probably surprised he's not fired at this point, you know, like, probably, you know, he was talking up there. He's like, you know, it's been a hell of a 2 years, hell of a front office up there.
I'm always going to remember this place. I'm always going to remember this team.
It's like, you know, hell of a contract there though, that gave you this opt-out language. Just nothing you could do about that. Just you know, you gotta give a hat tip to the guys on the other legal negotiating team. But no, like, I think, you know, they're waiting. The real reason they're waiting is, again, my theory on this always goes back to, what are they overcorrecting to or reacting to from the last time? And what happened last time? Everybody got really mad at them for firing Frank with like basically like 30 seconds left in the Nuggets game. Like, to be honest, we could go back. I'm not even sure if the game was over when Woj dropped.
I don't think
Frank
it was.
Vogel was fired. I don't think it was either, but I could be wrong. But either way, they did not wait very long, and they took some criticism in coaching circles for that. And so
remember, Frank had to answer for it, like in his post-game presser. Remember, he was like a reporter. Remember? I think it was Wojcicki. I asked him, "It's like, hey, this is awkward, but
do you remember his quote?"
No, I don't.
It was, "I haven't been told shit." It was like the one time Frank cursed his entire tenure on the
He was so
post-game.
fed up. Remember that one?
Yeah.
That was the season where the
And then
Lakers
they had to
beat
ask
the
like
Jazz.
Austin Reeves and like Malik Monk about it, because they were the only guys that was like 2-on-5 out there. I think
Actually,
like, Mac McClung got some minutes that
Austin,
night. They're like, Mac, what did you
Austin and
think
his
Frank
camp
getting
haven't
fired?
forgotten that. They were like, Austin just had like a triple double to wrap up the season. Like,
Yeah.
he, like put a cap on this incredible rookie like campaign at the end of the year. And instead of being asked about that triple double, he had to answer questions about his coach being fired.
Yeah. Like, Austin, great performance out there. Do you think if you would have done more, you could have saved Frank? Do you feel like it's your fault? Do you feel like maybe if you did that earlier in the season, he would have been able to play you more and justify it, a little earlier? Maybe you guys could have gotten it together for a run. How much of the, they're like walking up to the kid in the divorce and they're like, how much of this do you think is your fault? That mommy and daddy don't get along.
Blink 182 is playing in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, I think on some level they received, I think you could say justified criticism for how they handled that last one. Probably not the most tactful way to fire the coach that had won a title for you like 2 years before. Again, like if you are a Lakers sort of faithful and you're a Lakers person, you could say, hey, we didn't leave him hanging. We ripped the Band-Aid off and he was just out. He didn't have to wonder about his status, whatever. If you were being charitable, you could say that they did that. In this case, they are doing the opposite because of how much criticism they got for that. And so, Rob is sitting there in his office. He's like, really got to thoughtfully consider this. Kurt is just, he's got like the Professor X thing going. Like he's just like, sitting there. Oh man, hands on his temples. Like, this is just such a hard decision. I don't know what we're going to do. Jeannie's sitting there. Like, do you think if we make him wait long enough, he'll like quit and then we don't have to pay? And there's just like, there's these like sort of competing thoughts going around in the office and everybody's like really very seriously deliberating and trying to really think about this, but we all know what's going to happen. And I think in the end, they're going to end up firing him like, a couple, whether it's days or weeks or whatever from now. And then they're going to get criticized for leaving him hanging for as long as they did. And then the next time they're going to fire the coach with 30 seconds left in the game. And, just time is a flat circle. And so, I mean, I really think that this is more of a, like, we just don't want to disrespect him type of thing. And, if you're trying to become more attractive to veteran head coaches that you're likely going to be looking to hire, because again, they're going to go the opposite from the first timer this time, you would think, unless they go with JJ Redick. They're going to go with, they're going to want to be seen well in coaching circles and maybe not embarrassing the guy and making him answer questions about his own firing at the post-game press conference is a way that like more kind of serious coaches maybe take you a little bit more seriously when you're interviewing them and don't feel like this is a bad place for a head coach.
Remember also, as part of the whole, like their appeal to future coaches conversation, remember how Frank was hired in the first place, where they lowballed Ty Lue, a championship level head coach. They wanted to tie his contract to LeBron James's, which is looks even dumber now in hindsight, now that we know that LeBron is now getting ready to sign his third Lakers contract this summer.
Yes.
And then, so you had that. And then, so Ty Lue backs out also because they wanted to force Jason Kidd on him. And then we're able to force Jason Kidd on Frank Vogel. And when they did that, everybody knew that the hope there was like, not even like, not kidding here. The hope there from the Lakers was that it wouldn't work out with Frank because they wanted to hire Kidd. Frank was fourth on the totem pole when they were actually interviewing coaches. It was Lou. It was Monty.
He wasn't even in the initial interview round, if I remember correctly. He was in the secondary. Oh shit, we messed up with Ty Lue interview round.
Right, and then Monty took the job.
And
in
he
Phoenix.
was under consideration to be Ty Lue's lead assistant. Which I mean, if in retrospect, how monster of a coaching staff would that have been?
Yeah, would have been expensive, but like they basically so they wanted to hire Jason Kidd, but remember we at Silver Screen and Roll wrote about Jason Kidd's background, right? And finally he got asked about, and there was too much heat at that point to hire him as their head coach. So instead they make him the highest paid assistant coach with the hope that he would move up a seat over the course of that season.
I think a much more respectful message to people who might have been offended by that.
Right.
Obviously.
But like
totally different. Really stood on morals there.
It was really clear that they didn't believe in Frank Vogel, and then he wins. He messes around and wins a championship. And the year after that, they gave him. He was going to enter the season as a lame duck candidate,
No,
And
it
then
was 2 years later. It was 2 years later because the year after that was the Dennis Schroeder, Mark Gasol year, where that would have been Frank's second year as head coach, and they might have repeated if AD doesn't tear his groin in the first round.
yeah, and then
the next year he was going to go in as a lame duck, and they gave him the token 1-year extension that they like Friday news dumped.
Yep. And so, yeah, like all of that is to say their treatment of Frank Vogel, their hiring process that went into hiring Frank Vogel, the hiring process with Ham that was also kind of jumbled and quick, if I remember correctly. And look, this is still a relatively inexperienced front office because the only experience that you have in the front office is Rob Pelinka in that position. Like they don't have anybody else. So,
Kurt.
Well, but he doesn't have any front office experience.
Not true. He's been basically running the Lakers for the last several years. So,
By the way, just fair warning. I don't know if you guys heard the last, lightning crack that is rippling across my house right now. I am like basically in the middle of a biblical storm that is going on right outside my window. And if my internet cuts out, Harrison, good luck. Godspeed. All of those things.
Darvin Ham learned to master control of the elements, and he's just coming to take your house out.
And actually, I actually recorded a little quick thing here because Avery was scared by the lightning. So I told her that if she was brave, that she could come on the show. I'm not kidding. We recorded this little thing. It's a 30-second little clip here of Avery explaining lightning. All right. So Avery is going to explain lightning.
So why they're lightning? Because they're bowling.
Who's bowling?
The Angels.
Okay, the Angels are bowling.
And if they have a lightning, that means they have a strike.
A strike.
Yeah, and that means they have all of the points.
Okay, I like it. I like the theory. Who told you that?
Mommy.
Mommy. Good job, Mommy. All right, say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
I'm going to go ahead and say that, I value Dr. Jen's expertise in the medical realm. I don't know that you need to bring her on to explain the weather.
No, it's legitimately the carrot that I used to keep her in bed tonight, to keep Avery in her bed tonight. And I told her that if you're brave enough to come on my show, you are brave enough to sleep through a storm. And
modern day parenting, it's like, I'll let you be an influencer for 5 minutes if you go to bed on time.
Avery just graduated to Nepo baby. But yeah, I also, by the way, the next time, and right now I'm currently getting kind of roasted for my Mike Conley, DAngelo Russell take. I'm thinking about putting that on Twitter and being like, this is the man you guys are roasting. This is the father of children that you guys
you guys really need to get some like old fashioned, like Macy's style, like family portraits, like the ones that like everybody's like dressed up, you got a little turtleneck on, whatever. And then like you can tweet it out. It's like you and your loving fan, like it's like, oh, this is who you're being mean to, by the way.
Yeah, we probably should. I mean, we need to get those done anyway for the house, but but it should be content as well. Yeah, but anyway, getting back to like the whole treatment of coaches and all of that stuff. Part of this conversation here, again, like, and this feels dickish to do to Darvin, but again, like the guy's still going to get paid his money. He's going to be just fine. But, and then on the other side of this, he's still going to be one of the more coveted assistant coach candidates, on the other side of this as well. So, but like it doesn't feel great to do this, but I still like have spent a lot of the day thinking about coaching replacements. And you mentioned JJ Redick, and obviously there's hope internally that the Clippers flame out and they fire Ty Lue as a result of it, which probably not great to keep leaking that. Given that the Clippers have enough money to just pay Ty Lue to not go to the Lakers. But still, that's those
not even a coach for them. They're just going to pay him to not take the Lakers' money. That's how much money Steve Ballmer has.
He could. You know what? He could probably pay Ty Lue more to not coach the Lakers than Jeannie can afford to pay him to coach the Lakers.
Almost assuredly true. Like if he just really wanted to be spiteful, he could. I mean, he's like one of the richest people alive. He could do whatever he wants. Like
No, it's like the first season of Billions, right? Where he goes like, "What's the point of having fuck you money if you never say fuck you?" that would be a giant set of middle fingers directed at the team across the hall. But yeah, I have spent, and it's kind of a conversation among a lot of people kind of behind the scenes, is like, what would you look for in a replacement here? And for me, like you mentioned, Frank Vogel, we've talked a lot about Darvin Ham, and the thing that's kind of driven me insane in both of those cases is that the Lakers don't seem to have any idea on how to fill out a coaching staff that, makes up for some of the deficiencies of the head coach. Same goes for Luke Walton, right?
So it's, time is a flat circle because they let Luke assemble his whole staff. And then, again, that was a different front office, to be fair. Robin Magic came in midway through that, but then they're like, hey, maybe you should hire some veteran assistants. And he's like, hey, maybe not. And, then they fired him and they're like, okay, Frank, we're picking your assistants. And then people didn't like that. So they're like, okay, Darvin, hire whoever you want, except Rasheed Wallace. That's where we draw the line. We're not putting Nikola Jokic in pickle rolls, And so they let him do what Darvin, I actually think could have probably done well if he had like a like a Terry Stotts type figure, someone who's like an experienced head coach, a Lionel Hollins back in the day. I think he's sort of out of coaching or whatever, but someone who's been a head coach before that just can sort of help walk you through some of these things. It's kind of funny that the Lakers were a lot better when Quinn, and made seemingly better adjustments or whatever when Quinn Snyder was like an unpaid assistant during the first half of the year to Darvin Ham before getting the Hawks job. So it's just, I think he would have been well served and was sort of done a disservice in some ways from the Lakers by them not trying to get, a couple more experienced voices. But again, they didn't want him to feel threatened. They didn't want him to feel meddled with like Frank was, because everyone criticized them for meddling with Frank and hiring his staff. And so again, it's just like, now we're going to go through this thing, and maybe they should try and, force the coaching staff to be filled out with like a couple more veteran voices if they go with like JJ Redick or Rajon Rondo or Chris Paul or whoever. But who knows what they're actually going to do.
And that also,
actually, I do. They're gonna overreact to the last round of criticism, and like they're gonna pick all of this next coach's assistants.
Rob's
interviewed a lot of coaches at this point. He probably has a lot of insight on who's good, who's not.
So many coaching interviews. You'd think he'd be better at this by now, but like that kind of underlines a kind of central issue with the Lakers, is like, rather than focus on the actual process itself, the focus is on the reaction to their previous processes or their previous decisions. And like meddling with Frank Vogel, a former head coach, or meddling with Ty Lue, a former championship head coach, and trying to force an assistant coach on him, who, by the way, the whole reason Jason Kidd was supposed to be on that staff, or the reason that Rob Pelinka wanted Jason Kidd to be on that staff, was to spy for Rob Pelinka. So like for Ty Lue,
well, also to be fair, say what you will about the Kidd hire. Like I wasn't a fan of it at the time, or for just more reasons than just basketball. But they did bring him in because it was someone alongside. It's someone that makes up for the deficiencies of your coach. Frank Vogel doesn't necessarily have that powerful voice to hold LeBron and AD accountable. And Jason Kidd was a guy that they looked up to, respected, that LeBron played with on the Redeem team. They wanted that sort of former player voice as someone that could, be in the ear of those guys as well.
And we'll see what that looks like with this upcoming hire, right?
Because which process worked out better? I would argue the Lakers coaching staff made a lot of great moves during that first season.
It's inarguable.
Say what you will about the process to get there, but there was a lot of brain power in that room between, Lionel Hollins, Frank Vogel, Phil Handy,
You're absolutely
Jason
right,
Kidd.
Harrison. Yeah. They shouldn't have ditched the process. They shouldn't have overreacted to the people criticizing the process and been like, okay. Because it's even more important to do that with the inexperienced first time head coach, Darvin Ham.
Yeah.
So
it's like they didn't realize that the reason they were getting criticized is because they already made it very clear that this guy was not their first option. And then they were like sort of meddling with his staff to make it even more clear they didn't trust him.
Yeah.
Then with like Darvin Ham, they're like, do whatever you want, except Rasheed Wallace. Sorry, that's where we draw the line.
Which I would love to know more about that. I keep forgetting to kind of ask around like why they said no to Rasheed Wallace, other than like
my theory is no joke that they saw Tim/Crangis's thread on his high school coaching exploits and we're just like, wait, never mind. No, sorry.
I mean, like Rasheed is also kind of a loose cannon, and I with a first time head coach, I could understand maybe saying like that guy could eventually become a distraction for you. And again, like I don't have as big of a problem with meddling with Darvin Ham because clearly Darvin needed the meddling. Like this season, the front office probably could have meddled more and been like, hey, we signed Rui to a really big contract. We signed Jared Vanderbilt to a really big contract. And Austin Reeves as well. And for that matter, DAngelo Russell. Could we maybe play the guys that we just invested a shit ton of money in instead of Taurean Prince, who is making $5 million this year? Like, and I know, like, this is, I think, one of the spots that Aaron and I disagree most is because the Dodgers front office does meddle. Like they do at some time, at some points, consult with air quotes, Doc, and they'll talk to him about like, hey, maybe don't bunt. Maybe don't bunt in that spot, or maybe that pitcher should have been used in this other spot. And there's this kind of two-way street of communication there that exists that I think makes Dave Roberts a better coach and ensures that the roster is utilized in the way that the front office envisioned it when they put the roster together, right? And like that was the thing that, like, with Darvin this year, it was clear. Again, I don't want to share too much from the article that's dropping, but like people internally were like, how is there this obvious a lapse in communication between Rob and Darvin when they were the two people who put the roster together? It was super weird,
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, I think, coaches almost always feel differently in the summer than they do once they actually get back into the gym with guys and stuff like that. Yeah. There's always optimism about what everyone could be versus, and then you find out what they actually are. And, sometimes that doesn't align with what you actually value. But, I mean, getting back to your larger point, I think you're absolutely right, because there's no one that I trust more to give coaching advice to whoever the next coach is than Rob Pelinka and Kurt Rambis. I think, you got the dream team right there. Let them set the strategies. I think you're good to go.
Unironically, that is the one spot where I would say Kurt Rambis is well positioned to give good advice, because
he certainly
was
knows what not
a
to
very
do
good assistant coach
tenure. Oh, sorry. I thought took a lot of lessons during those seasons.
tons and like nonstop lessons.
Tons and like historic amounts of lessons we're learning.
But while all of this is going on, by the way, and this is the second bullet point that's there on your right, for those of you who are watching live on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too. That really helps with helping these videos up the old Al Gore's rhythm, as I like to call it. And a really weird thing took place today, a really weird report from Dave McMenamin today, saying that the Lakers were holding their player exit interviews, meaning, these are the conversations that players have on their way out the door, so that in some cases they an organization says like, hey, we'd like you to work on this. In some cases they say, DAngelo, it's been fun. Hopefully we'll we wish you all the luck in Brooklyn next year. Depending on the player and depending on the conversation.
He's just going to keep circling those teams around the league. He's back to Brooklyn, and then he's going to play in Golden State for like 3 games, and then back to Minnesota.
But it was really weird, though, Dave McMenamin offering up that detail. Usually, your head coach is involved in those conversations if he is still employed. And I seemed like I was joking about it on online today, but I did legitimately ask, like, the people I talked to, was Darvin there? Like,
I would be very curious. Did you get an answer? I would be very curious to know that.
All right. Without getting too specific here, everybody is being very, very careful on this front. And they're being very, very careful with any information as it pertains to this, even though everybody already knows where this is going. So no, I did not get a hardline answer, a hardline response, but I feel
likely is my guess that he was in there.
Like I feel like the lack of a response is the response, right? Like if Darvin was there, you can't
just say our coach was in the exit interview,
right? Like that was, I feel like it's a yes
Although
or no
actually,
question.
I'm pretty sure the Lakers did exit interviews with Luke Walton there, if I remember correctly, and then fired him afterwards.
Yeah,
So,
and normally this is the kind of thing that you should be able to say yes or no to, and nobody was able to
Yeah.
give me a yes or no answer. So again, everything that I've been told to this point, other than my own internal speculation, because we've seen the Lakers do really dumb stuff in the past, everything that I've been told is pointing to this guy is going to be let go. Maybe as soon as tomorrow. I don't know. I thought it was going to happen today. I planned out my day accordingly. It didn't happen today. I thought it was going to happen tonight while the games were going on. It hasn't happened tonight.
Not that I don't believe your sourcing or reporting or anything like that, but just, I mean, the fact that there were basically two extremely well-sourced hit pieces on Darvin's era, the moment after the buzzer sounded, it seems like the decision's sort of been made.
Yeah. And again, not a
they didn't even do that to Russ.
Not a single tidbit was refuted again.
Yeah.
There have been all kinds of inflammatory details on Darvin Ham's coaching this second season. And not once has a player stood up and been like, come on, guys. It wasn't
They
that
even
bad.
were like, he probably shouldn't have responded to AD that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not having your coach's back. I'm sorry. I think you're right to not have this coach's back. And I think they are correct in viewing that, hey, maybe you shouldn't have made this into a bigger thing. Anthony Davis probably shouldn't have said what he said either. But Darvin probably shouldn't have made this into a bigger thing. But if you're leaking that, seems like there's, again, sort of a disparate vision between what you want from your head coach and sort of the way that they view things.
Which made that whole Jared Greenberg report kind of weird. Right.
I mean, I think both things can be true. They probably weren't thrilled that AD sort of made that a storyline during the playoffs, but Darvin's response to it was about as bad as it possibly could have been.
Yeah.
Short of being really
poorly.
I don't know what AD's doing out there. I guess he's not paying attention during timeouts. We have great game plans. That guy's an idiot. Short of that, I'm not sure what he could have said that would have, poured more gasoline on it in the middle of a playoff series.
Actually, it would have been funny if he brought he brought a tablet there and played the viral clips of nobody paying attention to him. And he's like, this is why, here's why nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's looking away while I'm talking. That would have been
I, for one, am just shocked that in this organization, this is so out of character for there to be a bad season and then the knives to immediately come out for a bunch of people involved.
Yeah, especially this organization. We have never seen things go badly and everybody focus first on making sure that they weren't the reason things went badly.
Yeah.
How are you going to remember the season though? That's the thing that, both in terms of this summer right now, all of that stuff, but I think also interestingly, few years down the road, but let's start immediately. How when you look back on it right now, how do you feel about the season?
I think just frustrating overall. It feels like this was one of the more frustrating teams, not disappointing, not anger inducing or whatever, because they were always sort of just good enough that you could sort of believe in them a little bit. And you're like, these guys are pretty good when they sort of play the right way, when they play the right lineups, when things are working. It's obviously a flawed team. They shouldn't have been a title favorite or anything. There was no coaching that could have, made them run away with the number 1 seed in the West or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, Darvin is sort of the difference between the play-in and home court advantage in the first round or anything. But, it just felt like a lot of self-imposed lessons rather than wisdoms from a lot of people involved. Just from the roster construction to, the thing that just annoyed me throughout from basically the offseason until now. And I'm pretty sure you can go back and check the tape. And I probably said the same stuff at the time. It's just if your whole thing is we can't stop Jokic, we don't want AD to have to play center full time. Why did you sign 2 centers that are skinnier than AD as the other options? Why not
do anything about it at the deadline either?
Yeah, why not get someone a little beefier if you feel like that is sort of again, self-imposed L, not starting Rui, sort of going into the playing, it's funny. I was actually, I was basically doing a version of this podcast on a walk with my wife today. And we were talking about just post-morteming the season and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I've never seen anyone go as quickly from sort of feel good rebound story in Cam Reddish. It's oh, hey, lottery pick, he's learning how to play, he's learning how to make himself a defensive force, making a difference, to wait a second, why is he playing 35 minutes a game? That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
as Cam Reddish did. And, it's just like coaching decisions like that. It's, feeling like the whole, like half the season or more got wasted with like unserious lineup constructions and not everyone totally engaged. And then like, again, the whole thing with, hey, everybody's going to lock in after the trade deadline, like the ultimate procrastinators. And, it just felt like just from top to bottom, like a really just unserious, frustrating season.
Yeah,
Like, don't get me wrong, like the Dwight Mayer year, the Russ year, like those were worse by far. Those were way, way more anger inducing, I think, years, because it's just like you go from sort of the star power on the marquee to just how terrible the team was. This team never reached those depths and never had that level of expectation going in, where things could like flame out so badly. But I think that they could have been better than they were in just a lot of ways. And it was just sort of frustrating to watch the whole way through.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Like it's not in that absolute bottom tier type season. I would say it's the next tier up though, because like it's actually fairly similar to how I feel about the last Vikings season. Not the TV show, but my Minnesota Vikings, where I don't know what the Vikings actually accomplished last year. Like
it does feel like everyone sort of wasted a year of their time.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know. Like the Vikings didn't really develop anybody, weren't bad enough for a high pick, right? A high enough pick to walk away with an actually good quarterback. I know people were really excited about JJ, but he threw like a few times more than you and me during his senior year at Michigan. So they didn't have a high enough pick to go out and get a legitimately elite quarterback. And then they also were never anywhere near good enough, even when Kirk was okay, to like compete for a Super Bowl. So you're just kind of in that annoying treadmill of purgatory that mediocrity becomes. And I think that's kind of where the Lakers sit here, where those moments where you felt like they were legitimate contenders were so fleeting because of some of the decisions that were being made. And like, let's be fair. I do think injuries did play a bit of a role in this.
And, to be
season.
honest, Darvin, again, like he probably shouldn't have said it, but it was sort of honest that it's like, hey, like if D'Lo's playing terrible, like
you
or
thought
Austin
that was
can't hit
D'Lo?
anything. No, I think it was probably Austin. But
I thought it was Austin.
it's like if it's either,
Yeah.
I mean, to be
Or
honest,
both.
neither of them started the season very well. D'Lo
Yeah.
had a pretty bad start. Austin, did not have any of his, like, I'm not making excuses, like he was bad. And so, to some degree, like you can justify it in that sense, but it's also like it's the decision of who you're replacing them with that is sort of, it's like, are we sure that's a better option? How many games are we going to use on this?
Yeah, I like the injury thing. It played a role. I mean, it was funny. Spoelstra was asked going into his game 5 tonight about injuries and being competitive and all that stuff. And
did he say that it's actually easy to replace Jimmy Butler and it would have been harder if like,
but he just said like, we have enough. We got to go out and compete. We have enough. And like all year you got that excuse being made by Darvin. And that's where I felt that it was like a little too much, even if there's an ounce of truth to it. I just don't care. Like
again, it's making fun.
You need to be better when you have LeBron and AD as
during the Russ year. Yeah, it's like, it's the same thing we made fun of them for during the Russ year. It's like, then maybe you shouldn't have built the team around Trevor Ariza if he's this important. Yeah. That feels like a team, but like maybe you shouldn't have built the team around Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
seems like a flaw in roster construction.
And Gabe Vincent at $13 million, like you hard capped yourself for that guy.
It's like, it sucks to lose those guys. Every team loses guys like that during the year. Yeah, it's just like you're gonna have injuries. No one makes it through the season entirely healthy.
Right, and and also like, all right, you have injuries. Well, then make up for it at the deadline. Like you knew that you hadn't had Gabe all year. Maybe go out and get somebody who can defend and make a 3-pointer occasionally.
Well, that's why they got Spencer Dinwiddie, Anthony.
That's a good point. And yeah, like
So
you
they could play
mentioned,
them together because they were both
the
trying to get their legs under them. Spencer, Gabe after being injured, Spencer after quiet quitting for the entire first half of the year.
You mentioned the size aspect of all of this and the size issue that the Lakers dealt with. They got swept by the Denver Nuggets last year. That's the team that you knew you had to like build for this year, and you can make an argument they were even smaller this year.
They kicked the shit out. Sorry, I don't know if you're going to get an explicit rating now, so I apologize. But I mean, they kicked the shit out of you every single time in the regular season that you played this year too.
Yeah, right. In the same way, over and over and over again.
Every single time. It's like it's just like it would be like if you watch the Avengers movies and you're just like, well, yeah, but Thanos is a problem. Like he's probably going to win this time at the end of Endgame, right? Like,
yeah, it's. And we'll talk in a second about like how we'll feel about this years down the road. And that's where I think this will hurt more is you know, when you look back years down the road and you look back at this last season and you say like, man, you had LeBron and AD put together that season together where I really feel like that was the best basketball AD played from the start of a season to the end of it. Right. As
I
a
disagree.
Laker.
I think 2019-20 was better, but I think this is close. I think it's close.
I think 2019-20 he had higher highs, but I think consistently this was the best he's looked.
I still disagree, but I respect the point. I don't think that it's crazy.
And then, you know, LeBron continues to just, you know, make a mockery of Father Time.
I mean, he's 97 years old and he's going to make an all NBA team probably this year. You know,
again,
it's just like, I mean, how you can have your complete, oh yeah, he doesn't like rotate always on the back line on defense. Like, yeah, sure. Like I understand, but he was still one of, at worst, the top 20 players in the league this year.
Well, and then again, it goes back to the missed opportunity here. You know that that's going to be the case. Hey, coaching staff, hold Rui accountable once by actually talking to him, not just benching him.
Like, hey, guess what? You're not LeBron. Once. Sorry. You got to hustle.
Right. Like this is the aspect of
like, hey, guess what, guys? You got to pick it up. Sorry. LeBron's old. You know,
if I had to identify one reason,
LeBron's not slapping the floor. That's you guys.
If I had to identify one reason or one downfall of Darvin Ham, it's been culture, right? It's been the lack thereof. Where like Gabe Vincent he's made 4 threes all year. I don't even know if that's an exaggeration. Like maybe 6 this year. And he gets into the game in game 5, late-ish in the game, and his first shot is like a contested 3 over Aaron Gordon. And it's like, what? Huh?
Do you want to know how many shots he made in the playoffs?
Shots?
Yeah.
Oh, God. 7? Did he make 7?
3.
Oh, my God. And like that's the guy who like came off of the bench.
You're carrying over play-in stats. Like I think he actually shot well in the play-in game, but in the actual playoffs, not good.
He comes off of the bench. He's like ice cold, and he pulls a contested 3. You know, and it's just like you have Taurean Prince going ISO, you have Spencer Dinwiddie going ISO. You just like there was never any semblance of an understanding of what the Lakers needed to accomplish out there. And at the end of the day, that's a Ham thing. That's a front office thing. Hey, why aren't you holding these guys? Like, what are you doing out there? What are you trying to accomplish? Like, if I were Rob Pelinka and I put this roster together, I'd be asking, hey, yeah, this doesn't work very well if Taurean Prince thinks he's 2001 Allen Iverson. Like, I'm just throwing this out there, Darv. Like,
no, not 2001 Allen Iverson. 2021 Chris Middleton. Okay.
Well, I guess that's part of the problem is that like that's how Darvin felt about him and told him to behave out there. And yeah, like I like it's annoying enough right now because I do feel like this season had more promise to it. Like I disagree with Aaron. And he came on with Raj and me 2 nights ago and said that he didn't see a world in which the Lakers beat the Denver Nuggets in a series. And I understand why he would feel that way. They did win
I think
12
we're
out of
gonna get some
13
questions
games.
answered about that over the next round or so. And we're going to see, do they make the conference finals? Are they going to, because everyone was telling me, oh, you got to play him at some point. I don't know that
Yeah.
that's true. Jamal Murray looks like he can barely walk. And,
Yeah.
Through whatever satanic magic he channels against the Lakers, he was able to kill them again in the fourth quarter because he owns the Lakers. And that's just what it is. He could be playing out there on crutches and he would figure out a way to get it done. Michael Porter Jr. just never going to miss a shot again against the Lakers. That's just how it is. It's whatever. But, are those guys going to make it to the conference finals healthy coming off a title run? Again, this was one of my things of like, we've seen time and time again, champions, it is hard to repeat. It is hard to put your body through that
Very
grind and get there again. And, we're going to have a sense of what does this team look like in the conference finals? Do they look more beatable there? I think the answer is probably going to be yes, but we'll see.
We already saw in that series, you mentioned Jamal Murray, KCP turned an ankle there. They're already very thin.
Twice.
Peyton Watson and Christian Brown, neither of those guys were really factors in that series. Reggie Jackson turned an ankle against the Lakers. Like, that's a very thin team. And I would have anyway, that's a completely different conversation. But I felt like this year was this big missed opportunity because of the lack of organizational understanding going into it, right? Everybody was talking at media day and heading into the season about continuity. And the only person who apparently didn't get that memo was the person making the decisions about the rotation, and like, that's something that should have been addressed earlier in the season. Like, I know that Aaron feels like, the front office can't tell the head coach who plays and how much. To a certain extent, that's true, but they can ask questions. They can pull Darvin in and be like, hey, what is your thinking process here with this guy? Why is Taurean Prince consistently guarding the best scorers in the league at the beginning of the season?
Aaron obviously knows 200,000% more than I ever will about team dynamics or whatever. But like, logistically, you could tell him what to do. You are his boss. Maybe he doesn't do it, and then that's sort of a larger problem,
Mm-hmm. And
again, I'm not even saying that I want Rob being the one to dictate those decisions, but it might have worked out better than what they actually got.
Well, it at the very, very, very least, it has to be a conversation.
Like, you can't be like, oh yeah, no, Cam Reddish like playing as much as he did, like a Taurean Prince, like all these guys, they have promises to their agents. That's how you get them to sign. But also, we cannot control how much the coach plays who and how much. Like the Lakers can't have it both ways.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying Aaron is doing that. I'm just saying, like, based on sort of the reporting, the leaks, the rumors, whatever, you don't get to have it both ways. If we can't tell the coach what to do, but also, hey, like Cam Reddish has got to play. He's a clutch guy.
Right. The other thing too, like, going back to what was accomplished in that point, Colin Castleton not developed this year. Max Christie barely played over the course of the year. He's going to be a free agent. We have no idea who he is. Jaylen Hino.
I saw he's him last summer. I know who he is.
I still have full belief in him, but like Jaylen Hino, he dealt with injuries, and that's something that we need to take into account here too. But you drafted a point guard on a team that you already had 3 point guards
17?
as your main.
Sorry,
huh?
17 point guards, but I thought it was 17.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I guess I have that inverse. They drafted Jaylen Hino and then acquired another point guard and Gabe Vincent on the other side of that. And again, like, it's just, there's just no organizational consistency in terms of like what you're trying to accomplish. You shouldn't have used that draft pick on a player. B, you shouldn't have used it on a project. And C, if you're going to use it on a project, then you better have assets lined up to make up for that at the deadline, which they didn't, because anytime they mentioned Jaylen Hino in any of these trade offers, they got laughed out of the room. Like, sure. Yeah.
No, again, this is an old cliche, but I think in this one, it's a good one. That pick had value until they made the pick. And then it's like the car that you drive off the lot. It's like, okay, I didn't want that Nissan Sentra. Like, I wanted the green color, like I didn't want, whatever it is. I would never want green color, but I'm just saying.
Nothing green. But like, that's kind of how I remember it right now. Like, immediately after the season, like while the ink is still dry on the obituaries being written about this season. Although I guess in the case of the Athletic and ESPN, and even me, I can't lie, my obituary was written days before the season ended, so I guess that ink technically dried. But that's how I feel about it right now. Now let's try to fast forward a few years from now and figure out how you think you'll feel about this with the benefit of time. Or, in my opinion, for me, I think it's only going to hurt more years down the road.
I do wonder about that because, just the premise of the question. I mean, it's possible that we will look back at that and it's like, oh man, that was the last healthy season LeBron and AD had, together and played that many games. It's possible. I'm not rooting for it. I certainly don't hope that that's the case, but it's given their age, given their injury histories, they may not get a better season out of those guys moving forward than they did this year. And in that case, it'll feel like a missed opportunity. But at the same time, it's like, you also may look back and it's just like, you're looking at that roster and you're like, wait, why did we think that they could contend or give teams, an upset based on sort of what these guys go on to do? Again, like Austin, we'll see how he continues to progress and grow. D'Lo, I think we know sort of what D'Lo is. Rui, I think we have a sense of what Rui is. Again, like Vando, we'll see if he turns out to be a difference maker at any point during his career again. Like he probably will defensively, but is that a guy that you can look back on and you're like, oh man, if he had just been healthy, they really would have been cooking. Gabe Vincent, same thing. It's just like, are we going to look back on this and be like, were we insane? Were we insane asylum sources, to think that this team could have done anything? I think it's more likely that we'll look back and we're like, yeah, that was kind of a missed opportunity. But it is possible that we look back and we're like, yeah, maybe Darvin, maybe he had some points. Maybe you got a hand.
Yeah, like I guess it really does.
Maybe Cam Reddish turns out to be an all-star. I don't know. Anything could happen in the future.
In Taiwan, possibly. But like I
him and Dwight going to be a problem. Kobe and Shaq of Taiwan.
I'm picturing that meme of like Cam Reddish and Dwight.
Cam Reddish and Dwight in the PBA is going to be unbelievable. Like super team.
It's that video of Kobe and Shaq. Yeah,
it'd be funny. Cam Reddish still shoots below 50% from the field. He's just addicted to bad shots.
Well, everything is a bad shot when you shoot like Cam Reddish. Like, there's no such thing as a good shot. Not even layups, it turns out, are good shots for Cam Reddish. But we have breaking news here from Magic Johnson.
Oh,
have you seen?
I've not seen this. I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to go.
Magic Johnson just tweeted, Laker Nation, I have to apologize to the Lakers organization. It was It was injuries that plagued the Lakers this season, not load management. Harrison, I remind you,
who texted
quit
him
working for the Lakers to fire off tweets just like that.
Oh, did he delete the other one? I need to know. Okay, you filibuster. I gotta find out. Like,
I don't know.
I'm
his previous tweet, the reason that this is a talking point is because just the other day or yesterday, he tweeted out that
okay, this is still up. He said the Lakers have nobody but themselves to blame. They wouldn't have been in the play-in game or finished as a 7th seed this season if they hadn't lost too many games because of load management. And I was like, wait a second, what? Lost them because of what? Like
it struck me as like everybody who blames woke for everything. So like it just like the Lakers.
Did you not get the memo? Load management is dead. No one's doing that anymore. The NBA solved it. I mean, it's led to half their stars apparently are not going to be able to play in the playoffs, but they solved it. They all played above 65 games to get those contract bonuses. So
Kawhi played, I think, exactly 65 games and hasn't played since
66 or 67. But yeah.
65 games in 1 second, and
it would have been very funny if Kawhi had played exactly 65 games and then stopped. But I don't.
And then it stopped even for the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know. Years down the road, because I
played 68 games, so overachiever.
Years down the road, I feel like it's gonna like the way that we feel about Byron is. A lot of how we're going to feel about Darvin, where, the insane things that you say out loud about Byron now years, removed from his tenure, right? Where he played Ronnie Price a lot over Jordan Clarkson, who would go on to win, sixth man of the year.
To Byron, sorry, Freudian slip. To be fair to Byron, that was on a team that had no hope of anything anyway. So who cares? Like, I mean, they messed up for sure. It was bad process, but it's not like this season where, you're constantly shooting yourself in the foot as you're actually trying to play for something.
Yeah. But I think though that I think it's very, very likely that 5 years or so from now, we're sitting here saying remember when Max was couldn't get time behind Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince? Because I think that's where we're heading, whether he's a Laker or not. Same goes for Austin, right? Where as soon as next year, we might say hey, remember when this guy played 30 something minutes, low 30 minutes?
Had to argue for his
33,
way back into
34 in an elimination game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we're probably going to go there with him. And it's just it's one of those things that, it's kind of like fashion. There are some articles of fashion that I look at and I'm like, this is going to age poorly. This makes no sense, right? Like baggy jeans came back for some reason. I look back at pictures of me when I was in high school wearing baggy jeans and I say, I look like a moron.
Your high school pictures are quite the relic. I don't know if that's an off-season pod. We can just react to old photos of you from Facebook.
Dude,
but
we could there are pictures of me in some old some big ass jeans that
tips.
For some reason, no, I never frosted my tips. I have my hair kind of naturally blondes, but I never ever. That's one thing I will put my foot down. I never did, but some of that stuff came back, and I'm looking at it now. I'm like, this was stupid the first time. We didn't have to do it again, and that's how I feel about a lot of the things that went on this year. Is that as it was happening, I felt like this is really dumb. Taurean Prince ISO plays out of timeouts, really stupid. This is not something that's going to age well. And that's kind of, it's kind of a bummer that you lose a season to that. And you lose a season to, Darvin Ham clearly not being ready for it. And I don't know, that's, like you mentioned, it was the response that I gave to people. It sounds existential, and it is. But when people, sporadic, corduroys came back too. Corduroys are not comfortable. They're thick as hell. They don't even look good. Why are they back? Who decided that this was a good idea? But I don't know, man. I look at this. I look at the pieces that are on this team, and the decisions that were made both by the coaches and the front office. Hard capping your season, hard capping your team for Taurean Prince and Gabe Vincent. I don't give a single bleep how good Gabe Vincent was in the playoff run. That's not who he's been the vast majority of his career. You do not need to hard cap yourself for Gabe Vincent.
Anthony, to be fair, they had never had signing a backup Heat guard that had sort of overperformed work out badly for them before. So there's no way they could have known that players look worse when they leave the Spoelstra system.
And then not trading D'Lo at the deadline. And I know D'Lo is this lightning rod kind of subject that is always going to get people to argue with each other. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm just talking about straight asset management here. Not trading DAngelo Russell before he has this player option. It makes no sense. And you're like, well, you were never going to get equal value for him because he has that player option. Well, then fine. Don't sign him to the player option, or take less than dollar to dollar value on him, because you now run the risk of not getting anything whatsoever for him. And you eventually, in at least one playoff game, literally got nothing whatsoever from DAngelo Russell. So there are just all this kind of comedy of errors, this just queue of dumb decision after dumb decision after dumb decision at various levels of this organization. And what it winds up costing you is a legitimate opportunity with LeBron James and Anthony Davis having the season that they did. And that's where like you're saying that's the part of this where I'm the most nervous. Years down the line, I'm probably gonna look back on this year and been like, man, it's kind of like the Ed Helms line in The Office, right? You wish that you could understand and enjoy the good old days while you're in them, right?
Yeah.
So that when you look back and you see that those are the good old days, you don't feel so bad about not enjoying them as much. That is nowhere near the actual line on it, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No. There's a chance here that's how we feel. That's how we'll feel about LeBron James and Anthony Davis this season this year, where both of those guys, like if the Lakers were at all competent, AD is in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, right? And maybe even the MVP conversation. And he's not going to get that recognition for the season that he had because the Lakers kept on trying to resuscitate Cam Reddish's career. What? And then he didn't even play in the playoffs with an ankle injury. Like this is what like this is. It's all of it. It's such a bummer. Last thing before we move on to the super comments, because
by the way, have you gotten to DAngelo Russell's exit interview quote on the show already?
I haven't. I honestly try to avoid DAngelo Russell because anytime I mention him, my mentions are just a disaster for like a week.
Then I'm gonna do something that the D-Lo fans are gonna like. I'm just gonna quote DAngelo Russell and say, "Hell of a year by DAngelo."
I can't believe that he said that like he now understands he has leverage going into the season and looks forward to using it. What leverage, D-Lo?
Yeah, I mean, I get that he can say, I understand the theoretical concept of his leverage, that he's like, well, you can't use me as a human trade exception if I opt out. But it's like, okay, who's offering you more than 18? Like maybe you get a longer term deal, but
even
like,
18.
Who's offering him more than the MLE?
Right.
Like, I don't think that team exists. Like Detroit's going to have apparently like a competent front office person. So like maybe D'Lo and Tobias Harris, like their agents are like crying in their living rooms. Like they're like, oh man, Troy Weaver's gone. What are we going to do? Klay Thompson.
Right. I don't know where that, like in order to have leverage, you need to have a second option. That's where leverage is drawn from. I don't know who D'Lo's
like,
second
are the Magic
option
like,
is.
oh, DAngelo Russell's the point guard we've been missing. Maybe. I kind of doubt it though. He doesn't seem to fit their archetype of player at all.
No. And I'm like, I actually think he makes some sense for them, but he's not who they're going to target. Like that's not how their organization sees things.
He's not a long guy that can't shoot. That's their target.
Yeah.
He's the opposite of that. He's a short guy who can shoot. He's like the exact opposite of the type of player they like.
I tend to think that he'll be advised to just opt into his contract because the type of contract that he'll get next year will probably be pretty similar to the contract that he would sign this year anyway. Exactly. And you may as well just get the extra few $1 million this year and then sign that contract next year.
I guess the only argument, not without getting too far into the weeds, is like maybe, whatever he's making in a state that doesn't have income taxes is as good as, the Lakers 18 million or whatever. And then he gets to choose his destination, multi-year deal, security of that, whatever.
Yeah. I don't see the path forward there for D'Lo to make much sense for him.
San Antonio Spurs. They said Wemby needs a point guard. D'Lo really seems like a Spurs player. I think a real Pop guy.
Exact type of player that Pop would just
Detroit Pistons. Hey, they need a mentor for Cade Cunningham. They need someone to teach Jaden Ivey the ropes. DAngelo Russell, let's go. Come on down.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I'm biased, ultimate Daryl Morey player. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, they need that third star. I think D'Lo, that's your guy.
I guess the Miami Heat were just eliminated. They could use a few extra buckets. A D'Lo and
Tyler Hero backcourt. That's going to be
like D'Lo playing next to a white guy
of all time.
Huh?
Tyler Hero and D'Lo, like greatest Instagram backcourt of all time. Like
I could already see the post like who's stopping this team?
Yeah.
Who's stopping this backcourt? It's like Instagram. All right. Let's dive into the super comments here. I'm just gonna play one here at the top. That's the compromise I'm gonna make with people. Those of you who don't, for some reason, don't like people saying F Boston. The compromise is that I won't play it several times over the course of the show. I'll play it once before the super comments because I appreciate you guys sending us the super comments. Justin Tyndall writes, it pisses me off that the shits the bed after 10 games comment was a shot at Austin, and he still has a job, but Prince and Reddish had 75 combined starts. Yeah,
there's a lot of shit in the bed, I'm gonna say, and you know,
the shit might be the bed. Like they might have had to replace the bed.
Justin, if it makes you feel better, I don't think he's going to have a job much longer. So, you know, it's just like it's sort of a waiting game at this point.
That's the thing, man.
Can you imagine if they bring him back?
That's the thing. Like, it's been so weird to have conversations with, like, I did a lot of talking on the phone today. Like a lot of texting, a lot of messaging, a lot of emails, a lot of calls. And everybody that I spoke to was like, yeah, we all know where this is heading. We're not really sure why they're dragging this out. Like, we have no idea like what the wait here is for. And yet here we are still waiting. Justin Tyndall writes again, still refuses to say his coaching wasn't good enough. Jeannie is acting like she's down to her last $5 and paying Ham $10 million is a big deal. I actually had the math broken down.
Tyndall, given your generosity on the super comments, do you want to buy the Lakers? Like, let's talk offline. Like, send Anthony and I an email. We'll see if we can get like a finance packaging together. I'm serious. You know, yeah. I'm not even. I don't like. Again, I can't imagine that Jeannie would listen to or like our show very much, but she's not leaving us this many super comments. I'm just saying, you're showing the type of generosity I want to see from a Lakers owner.
Yeah. The money thing here is so tough. Like,
Justin Tyndall would absolutely pay our salaries after firing us. I believe it.
Oh yeah.
And just hire better podcasts.
Especially, like, especially if like if Justin could fire us, I'm sure like he was like, yes, yeah, great. But the money thing here is so difficult because like it's become this joke on Twitter, and it's a pretty consistent reprise of my own, but it's so frustrating to know that there are just things that,
it's grounded in fact.
Yeah, right. Like it's so frustrating to like know that there are things that the Lakers are just not capable of. It's like because of this limitation.
The reason Veep is such a funny show is because it is so also real and sad, the things that it is parodying. And the reason those jokes about them being cheap are funny is because they are cheap and we have to laugh through that.
Yeah, Gary Beatty is an air traffic controller. Lane R, speaking of Jeannie, Lane R says, I bet Jeannie is waiting till LeBron gives a firm commitment to fire Ham. Otherwise, she'll keep him and save money. You know, her penny pinching ways.
I kind of doubt this is true, but I love this theory. It's like, well, like we draft Bronny. Like, could you just tell us that you're going to sign the extension? We'll fire him. We will.
Did you see the immediate response from Rich Paul? Like, we don't care. We do not care if you do.
Again, we're already long, but so I won't go too long on this, but like my theory on that is that's very basic agenting of we're going to make it clear to teams that you cannot hold Bronny hostage and automatically get LeBron. So Daryl, if you draft him, that does not guarantee that you are getting LeBron on the mid-level exception. You can try it, but it's not going to work. And, you know, it's very much standard, your agent sort of guiding guys through the draft. It's the same as Austin telling the Detroit Pistons he doesn't want to go there. It's the same as, you know, Kobe's agent trying to secure his way to the Lakers, whatever. That's very basic agenting to me. It's also probably true. You know, like if the Detroit Pistons draft Bronny, I can't imagine LeBron's like, sign me up, let's go. You know, like, because he has said consistently he wants to play his last year with Bronny. I don't think next year is going to be his last year in the NBA. I don't think this was his last year in the NBA. And so I do sort of, I believe them, but I also think it's very basic agenting.
I also, like, as a father, if my kid was going into the NBA and clearly needed to develop more in order to stay in the NBA, Probably wouldn't have him go to the Lakers. Like, yeah, you could have him work with Phil Handy, but Phil Handy isn't strictly a developmental coach anymore. He's further up on the bench. He has other things that he's working on. They didn't develop Max Christie this year. They didn't develop Colin Castleton. They didn't develop Jaylen Hino. If I'm LeBron and I saw all of that on top of the added pressure that Bronny is going to walk into by being a Laker, if I were LeBron and the only thing that I had in mind here were the best interests of my son, I wouldn't want him to be a Laker.
Do you want, in a year with expectations, do you want fans on the road chanting Nepo baby at him when he checks into the game?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
like when it's not it is a heartwarming story in a lot of ways, them playing together or whatever, but not in the same way as it's like, okay, this is LeBron's last year. They're just sharing the court. It's like a passing of the torch sort of moment. They're, passing two ships passing in the night, whatever. If you bring Bronny into a team with expectations, like, I don't know that that's the best thing for his development or him right now.
Yeah, I mean, how often is he gonna do you want your son?
Do you want talk shows all year next year? It's like, oh well, the Lakers, they could have used this pick on Colin Castleton Jr. or whatever, and they went with this guy and
Max Christie's brother.
Max Christie's brother. They could have used it on whoever the next Jaime Jaquez is or whatever, and it's like they drafted Bronny, and do you want all that I don't think that that's happening.
Oh man, imagine if Bronny goes in the second round to the Lakers and the pick after the Lakers is that random second round gem. Oh, that would he would never hear the end of it. Huh?
Nikola Jokic too.
Yeah, right.
Two Nikola Jokic, it's
yeah. The next question here from Brandon Omeng. I'd keep Bron, AD, Vando, AR, and Max. D'Lo probably opts out. Bring back or trade Gabe or Rui. Who would you like to bring back outside of LeBron and AD?
Dropping the bit, I would actually like to bring Gabe back. If you can't get something good for him without attaching an asset, which I can't imagine you can, there's no way he's worse this year than he was, coming off of an injury.
I mean, the one nice thing about potentially keeping, Gabe is he would allow you to, you don't have to go out and get another point guard, right? Like, if D'Lo opts in and you trade D'Lo, it doesn't have to be for another guard. You can I know I catch a lot of crap for saying that I would have done the DAngelo Russell and a first for Dorian Finney-Smith and Royce O'Neal trade. You know what? Again, I'm not even interested in talking about it anymore because I see the game fundamentally different, not better or worse, but different than the people who like DAngelo Russell on their basketball team. We are just never going to agree about basketball, right? And
quite the change for you over the years.
I know. It's like I was remember the whole Lakers beat back then hated me because I defended DAngelo Russell so ardently. Yeah. But anyway, that's what I would have done is I would have traded him in a first for Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith. And maybe you do take a bit of a step back. And I'm not saying that DAngelo Russell's input or impact was not valuable over the course of the regular season. It's always valuable over the course of the regular season. The problem is the postseason comes after the regular season. And we know how that tends to go for him. And so anyway, with D'Lo, I still tend to think that he opts in, and maybe that's my own bias here. And I think you trade Rui and D'Lo and Jaylen Hino and all of those picks or whatever, and see what that kind of a package can get you on the open market, and you kind of move forward that way. But in terms of players that I definitely want to keep, it's LeBron, it's AD, and it's AR. And everybody else can go. I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, the obviously no one else sort of reaches that level of bucket. I mean, again, it always depends on the trade or what you're losing them for. If Taurean Prince gets a big deal from someone else and you don't match that, it's fine. But if you trade Vando for if you make a bad Vando trade, or you're we just need to attach a first to get off of Vando and Gabe's money, and we're not really getting much of an upgrade. I don't want to do something like that. In those cases, I say you keep those guys, you see if they can have a better year, and I I'd be curious to see what they can bring under a different coach in sort of a different system and with a healthier season. And so like those two guys, like Gabe Vincent, I was going to read the stat I just want to get it in on the show because it's so fun. Like, do you want to know what his defensive box plus minus was in the playoffs?
Oh yeah, sure.
It was a positive 1.3. But he still had a negative 8.3 box plus minus because he was a negative 9.6 on offense. So again, that doesn't tell the whole story, but it does sort of, illustrate that, hey, if he's just hitting a couple shots, he could be, which he has historically in his career. He's hit some shots, not all the shots like he did on the Heat's run to the finals, but he hit some, and he could maybe be a little bit more useful. Like he's still a good defender, even coming off of that injury and having not played. And so like he's the type of guy I'd be interested in keeping around. He's not making that much money.
Rye Guy, heard today if Vogel is back, Ham is likewise back too. LA may use Phoenix as an out to keep Ham. They, meaning Phoenix, had a disaster and kept their coach. Why not us?
God, that is the funniest possible reason.
That it would be funny.
They didn't fire. They're like, why? Look, they had a bad season. They didn't fire their coach. We don't have to fire our coach. It's like, wait, you don't. Why are you making your decisions based on what the Suns do? But I love this theory. I believe Rye Guy. Count on Rye.
Well, it's like we said, right? In our, I don't know if you want to out our your method or whatever to predicting what the Lakers are going to do, right? Or your rule, but it's like, well, I'll let you tell it if you want to say it, if you want to tell it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just whatever. What is, you just think to yourself, what is the funniest or dumbest possible thing they could do? And oftentimes it's like not that far off from what actually ends up happening.
Yeah. And that's this example, that that theory or that prediction is pretty damn funny. In like a laugh as a train runs me over way. Legend writes or asks thoughts on taking a gamble on Time Lord for cheap. I don't trust the Lakers. What's that?
I think the Rockets are just keeping him, right? Like they traded for him already as a buy low guy. Like I don't think that
Time Lord.
Yeah, Robert Williams.
I thought he was still in Portland. I thought they traded for Steven Adams.
Oh wait, yeah. I'm sorry.
They traded for Steven Adams.
They thought about. I think they were interested. There were rumors connecting them.
Yeah, they might have. I don't know for sure, but I know that they traded.
I am checking this right now because I'm realizing I don't know who he played for. I have no idea.
But Time Lord, I don't know. I don't trust, like, even no matter where he is right now and the likelihood that he is available. I don't think you can ever really get that guy for cheap until he's reached like the Bynum zone. And then B, I don't
apologize. They were looking into Time Lord and then they ended up doing the Steven Adams thing. So I just remembered.
But the problem with acquiring anybody like Time Lord, right, who you're just like, if he can just stay healthy, is I don't really trust the Lakers training staff to like keep somebody like that.
Imagine, this season was bad, but like, if Robert Williams had just stayed healthy, I think, they would have been able to guard Jokic and it would have been fine.
He's like the exact player too. He's a version of Jackson Hayes. He's like a better Jackson Hayes. He's like
a much better Jackson Hayes. Don't come on. He's a much better NBA player than Jackson.
No, he's like
Hayes.
he's like the middle evolution. He's not like he's the
Charizard. No, he's the Charizard of Jackson Hayes.
He's like, what's the bottom? He's
a lot better than Jackson Hayes.
It's like Charmander, Charmeleon, and
Charmeleon.
Yeah, so he's Charmeleon, and like Dwight Howard is Charizard, right? Yeah. That's
Washed Dwight Howard is like the Charizard of Jackson Hayes.
No, that player type,
the 2021, like the almost washed Dwight Howard.
No, the point of like the Charizard thing is that's like the best version of that Pokemon.
That's disrespectful to Prime Dwight. He's the super evolution in that case. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Is there another evolution beyond Charizard?
You can do that now. Yeah, I think you can like super evolve your Pokemon.
Okay. All right. So then that's Dwight. That's Prime Dwight. Yeah. Which is like, okay. All right. That's fair. We got some Pokemon talking here too. Yeah. Nathan Mark is wondering, is the storm you're experiencing God finally coming for your bad takes? Look, bring it. You haven't got me yet.
Oh, not that I'm rooting for your death, but it would have been so funny if your internet just cut out right then. Like you just see a flash and then it's just me on screen like All right. Well, there's
all right.
no clip.
Lane R is asking, my spec is LeBron.
Speculation.
What's that?
Speculation, I think.
Okay. Is LeBron waiting to see if Denver wins again? And if so, he'll go to a team in the East. Wouldn't you? He won a ring there without begging KD. I love that theory. That he's he's looking at the West next year and he's like, dude, come on.
He's like, I miss being able to just sleepwalk to the finals. That was nice. Like I could
at least through the first round,
a whole series against the Raptors. It was great.
Yeah, like at least at least through the first round, maybe even through most of the second rounds that he played in, were pretty kind of sleepery. And then finally in the conference finals, he would usually get tested a little bit. But
a little bit. I mean, with some of those Cavs runs, not really.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, the East, dude,
he runs for sure. There was some legit competition at that point, and then like the Cavs runs, it just coincided with there was just no one in the East.
I asked it the other day, and I think I would take the under here. Over under like 1.5
rookie
good
Jason
teams
Tatum in the conference finals one year. You know?
Yeah. Well, like over under Harrison. As the teams are currently built, even if you want to make them healthy, you can do that too. Over under 1.5 good teams in the East right now.
You're saying contenders?
Yeah, like good teams,
yeah,
like actual title
Boston.
Contenders in the East.
Yeah, it's Boston. Like none of those other teams even have any hope of beating
so
whoever
take
comes
the
out
under on 1.5.
Yeah,
I agree. But and that if LeBron is looking at that, like saying,
I feel dirty. Can you play the sound effect one more time? I'm sorry.
All right, we have one more super comment here. Rye Guy listing potential players there: Killian Hayes, Clay, KD, LeBron, and AD. I guess in this case because you wouldn't have money to sign Clay if you trade for KD, right? And then it's just a bunch of minimum players. What do you think about the whole KD thing?
I'm sorry. Rye Guy, I appreciate the super comment. I appreciate the patronage. I don't understand why Killian Hayes is first. That's the part that's breaking my brain. Like, I wanted to hate this suggestion just because that was the first name in it. I'm like, wait, why? I don't. And then it's like, okay, Clay, I don't know, a little while, but like then KD, all right, you're putting together.
It's
like
the reverse horse. It's the reverse horse meme, right? Where you start
exactly.
with like the 6-year-old drawing of a horse, and
exactly. And then it's like turns into the perfect. It's like this is great.
Yeah, Black Stallion.
I just don't see a path to the KD thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe they could make it happen, but what? How do you even match his salary?
Well, he needs to demand another trade, which I don't think he can do again.
If there's any player who would do it,
it's true. But I just like here's how you have to phrase it. If you're KD, you go to the Suns and you say, "Hey, you guys need assets."
Great things about LA.
Yeah, no. Just like Matt Ishbia, whatever your name is, he's just skipping over James Jones because clearly it's Ishbia running things now. So you go to Ishbia and you go, "Hey, man, you clearly need assets. This isn't going anywhere. You aren't going to be able to move Beal. You don't want to piss off your fans by moving Booker. I don't want to be here anymore. Last season sucked. I don't want to run pick and rolls or be expected to run pick and rolls with Devin Booker. Here's what let's just like I'm asking or I'm offering you the opportunity. Go ahead, trade me, get some assets back, and we can all pretend this never happened. And like do so as like, in a charitable venture that he can present that to the Suns as. Not like his previous ones where it's like, get me the F out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. And this one's like, look, it would help both of us.
Look, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
You guys get some Laker picks. I get to go to LA. It all works out.
Yeah. You can bet on the organization, falling apart after LeBron and I leave. Like, take care of this, And by the way, I think if the Lakers are able to stack enough contracts and give up the 3 picks, that's about as good a package as you're going to get for Kevin Durant at this stage of his career after yet another even pseudo trade request.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd say it's
again,
like
I'm not sure that Killian Hayes is the answer at point guard I want there. You know, that's all I'm saying. I'm sort of like, you could get me behind the KD idea. You know, Clay
for the
mid-level.
He's going to be your starting point guard next year.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Shout out Raj.
Raj is like, yes, finally. All right. That is going to do it here for this nice extra long episode here. As I'm not going to lie, I made this extra long just in case the news dropped while we were on the air. But apparently I didn't wait long enough. I needed to wait until tomorrow. And we'll see what that looks like. If and when that news drops, then we're still waiting for it, though. Again, as we've been saying all along, that is the likeliest outcome of all of this. Not exactly breaking any crazy news there. This is just how this works. And if and when that news does drop, we'll go live
right after we go off the air.
Oh my God, it would be so perfect.
I already know.
Yeah. If that does happen, I at least will hop right back on here and discuss it and talk about what all it means and all that good stuff. If it happens tomorrow, the plan is to talk with Aaron anyway, so he and I will talk. For
Aaron texted the Lakers, guys.
If you guys
please just wait until Friday, please. I know you love Friday news dumps.
Yeah,
just do me a favor.
Do you think? I mean, like, man, Rob has to be so upset that they couldn't have their season, even if they didn't win another game. Like, why couldn't the season go one more day so that we could have made this a Friday news dump? But
yeah,
here we are. Yeah, if that news does drop though tomorrow, the plan is anyway to talk to Aaron, and he and I will talk about it. So either he and I are going to get together and talk about the actual news dropping, or continue to wonder why the news hasn't dropped yet. And in emphasis,
I'm sure those will be equally fun pods for Aaron. I think he's going to enjoy both of those conversation things.
I would say, yeah, I think he would. There's no version of those two conversations that he prefers over the other. That is for sure. So until 100%. Then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Harrison Fagan. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Please hit that subscribe button, that like button. Appreciate the super comments. Get your 5-star iTunes reviews in for mailbags as well. And have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And I will talk to you maybe in 5 minutes. Who knows?